Tes Ois Gimel Timer, and we were speaking about to explain the question of the Ben Chacham. We were talking about that the Ben Chacham's question is Ma Ma Eidos Vachukim Mishpatim Asher Tziva Va'Elokenu Eschem. What is the Eidos Chukim Mishpatim, which all these three terms we said indicate the Yerida, the fact that it comes down in Gashmis. If we are about connecting with Hashem, it should be more with Ruchnistic things. And that's why we're emphasizing Eschem, the way you, the Yidden, were given the Torah to deal with the Gashmis. And that's why the Chacham is asking, not Isanu, because he is like including himself with the others, that the others had done the mitzvahs with Ruchnias primarily, even though they also used Gashmis, but was primarily doing things in Ruchnias. That he can understand, that the Ben Chacham understands, to do mitzvahs with the spiritual. But what does it mean to do mitzvahs in a Gashmistic type of way, in physical things, in Yerida, in a low world, and so on and so forth? Okay, so we're holding Ois Gimel, line 14, page test. To this comes the response. This is what we respond to the Ben Chacham. The point of the response is, Hashem commanded us to do all these chukim, to have awe, to fear, es havaya lekenu. So the Rebbe is going to emphasize that it says es instead of just leyira havaya lekenu, but leyira es havaya lekenu. The idea behind this is being exiv. In one place it says in the pasuk yiru me havaya, have awe of and from havaya. Another pasuk in Tehillim it says yiru es havaya, with the additional letter S, word S. That is similar to what it says over here. In response to the Ben Chacham, we are telling him, Liyira es havaya. What's the difference? Moisif tevas S, that by adding the letter S, shepirushai davar hatafel. The word S means something that is ancillary to it, something that is secondary, something that's toppled to something else. That's what S means. Like the word iti, with me, something that's toppled to me. In Nigla, it's used, we learn out from the word S when we're trying to bring a raya for something that is a proof for something that's toppled. So what does this mean in regards to the concept of Yira V'hainu? This means Shnei Psukim Elam, these two psukim, Yiru me Havaya without the S, versus Yiru es Havaya, Shtei Dargas Haklolius B'Yira. These are two general levels in Yira. First of all, there's Yira Tata, there's the lower level of Awe Hashem, where the person still exists, but he is bottled to Hashem. He doesn't completely lose himself in his bittul to Hashem. Then there's Yira Ilah, a higher level of Yira. Yiru me Havaya Laloy Tevas as Yiru from Havaya without the additional letter of S, She'enoi Tafel, that he is not completely ancillary to Havaya. Why? Because the person, even though he has Yira, he's still an independent existence. Ella, being an independent existence, Elishu Yare me Havaya. He is in awe, he has fear of Havaya. There's me and I have fear of Havaya. Koyal Yira Taton, that goes on the lower level of Yira. Similar to what we say about Bitl Ayesh. The person is a Metzias, but he's a Metzias, that's Bat. The same thing, Yiru me Havaya. There's an existence. I am someone, and I have a Yira from Hashem. Then there's V'yesh Yira Niles Yoser, there's a higher level of awe. Ubachlalas, we in Yira Ilah in general, it's the level of the higher level of awe. Shalza number concerning this, it says, Yiru es Havaya, that the Yiru is in such a way that I am S to Havaya, that I am ancillary, auxiliary to Tafel, Ve'elim, Mitzias, B'fnei the Yiru is so pervasive that I'm only an S, I'm only something that's secondary to, I'm not a separate entity. Same thing in the response to the Ben Chacham. It also says, "V'zeu Omri." That's also what he says. By Tzavenu Gomer Liyira Savai, he commanded us to have yira, in a way of being bottled totally Tavayim. Tachus Hagavona, the ultimate purpose, the Eidus Chokim Mishpatim of all these three different types of mitzvahs. Udechol Echad ve'Echad miYisrael, and also the ultimate purpose of every single yid is, sorry, lost the page for a second. Udechol Echad ve'Echad miYisrael. The Giliyira Savai is to have awe brought in a way from Hashem, in a way of S. The Yira should come to a level of the higher level of Yira. Adla Bitla Mitzias, until such a state where he's completely bottled by Mitzias, he has no separate existence whatsoever. That is the purpose that we are trying to reach through these mitzvahs. The mitzvahs that you're asking about, the mitzvahs of Eidus, Chokim, Mishpatim. Why am I doing these mitzvahs? What is the purpose of these mitzvahs? The purpose of these mitzvahs is to reach the ultimate level, the level of Esavai and Bitla Mitzias. Then are concerning this, it says, by Tzavenu, Goimer Las is a call of Chokim, he commanded us to do all the Chokim, La'elam, L'yir Esavai, I know this means. They Shakim Kala mitzvahs, fulfillment of all the mitzvahs. Loidaka mitzvahs Nikroim Chukim, not just those mitzvahs that are called Chukim. Elegam mitzvahs Nikroim Eidus Mishpat. Also those mitzvahs that are called Eidus Mishpatim. Yeba Eifen Yavi Liyira Savaya should come to a state of having total bittul to Hashem. So Chukim, since it's super rational, so it's understood that by doing mitzvahs of chukim, chukim is something that is going to bring us. It's beyond our understanding. It brings us to a total bit. But we want that not only by the chukim we should be in a way of bit, but also when we're doing edus and mishpatim we should be in such a way of liyira es havai that we're completely bottled. So the mitzvahs shall be a bittul mitzvahs. So the very fulfillment of the mitzvahs has to be in such a way of bittul mitzvahs. Klal in general, mitaychish atzuma v'yigia atzuma, and has to be out of great effort and great toil. The toiling in the mitzvahs enables this. That's why, in the response, though the question of the Ben Chacham was about Eidus, Chokim, and Mishpatim, but the response is, Vayitzavenu Gomer Lasas Kol HaChokim, and he doesn't mention Eidus and Mishpatim, because doing mitzvahs in a way of Chokim, in a way of toil, that ensures that all the mitzvahs, even the Eidus and Mishpatim, should be in a way of Bittul Mitzias as Havai. So he says, Shizel, in the Chukim line 10, Maloshan Chakika, engraving, Chukah Chakaki, have engraved of law, not only are the Chukim not only not intellectually based, Al Adra, but just the opposite, Heipcha Seichel, the laws of Chukim are the opposite of Seichel, Bim Kain, Areza, Heipch Mitzius, so this is the opposite of the person's being. Why is the opposite of Seichel the opposite of a Yid's being? The Yosei Am Chacham V'Novin. Every Yid is a part of the wise and understanding nation that the Torah calls us. To call Mitziusi Unyana Seichel, the entire existence of the Yid is the idea of intellect. Despite the fact that the entire reason, or my entire being is intellect, still in all, I do the mitzvah because of just that it's the law. Afilu ba mitzvahs the edus, afilu ba mitzvahs the mishpatim. even those mitzvahs that can be understood, I still do them in such a type of way that it's a choik. And therefore, by doing it in a way of a choik, we come to a level of es havai. So the Rebbe is going to go on to explain how do we incorporate that? How do we do the avodah in such a type of way that all the mitzvahs, even edus and mishpatim, is in the way of cooking? So one of the questions we ask is, why does he bring in avodah mayinu lefarim b'mitzrayim? Seemingly, if the answer is right, as kol chukim ha'elu liyiras havaya, that's where he should have started with. Why is it necessary, the history lesson? Because the avodim hayinu will enable us to do everything in a way of chukim. It says in line 17, he prefaces the idea that says we were slaves to Pari Mitzrayim. And therefore, Havaya commanded us to do all these chukim to fear at the level of Es Havaya, to reach a level of being toughful and bottled Havaya. The idea behind this is the reason for the difference between these three different types of mitzvahs that Hashem commanded you, to quote the Ben Chacham, Binyanim Gashim, that deal with physical matters, Davkim, La Mitzvah Shakiyim, or Avis Beruchnis, versus the mitzvahs that the Avis did in the spiritual, Shazoi Shales Ben Chacham. That's what the Ben Chacham is asking. Why do we have the physical mitzvahs of Edus, Kokim, Mishpatim, and the Avis? It was sufficient. The mitzvahs Beruchni is Smana Avis Hoya Oila Mezucha Muksha Lakabel Pulasa the Edus, Kokim, Mishpatim, Megashmis Oilam. It was because of how low the world was. It wasn't that, it's spiritual, it's so high. No, just the opposite. The world was not refined and ready and able to receive the effect and the influence of the light of the Edus, Kokim, Mishpatim, and the physicality of the world. Therefore, they had no other choice but to do it beruchnis. Therefore, as we mentioned earlier in the Maimer, the mitzvahs were of the Avis were only like a smell, like a scent that has no substance to it, has no body to it. It's only something that the soul can derive benefit from, as we mentioned those before. But it doesn't directly influence the body. It only strengthens the bond that's between the neshama and the body. In other words, a person, like we said earlier, if a person is unconscious, so you use a strong smell, use smelling salts, for example, to bring soul and body back together. But that's all that it can do. It can't really strengthen the body itself. You're not going to treat an injury or a sickness and so on through smelling salt. Smelling salt is only to bring the soul and the body back. It's not like eating and drinking and medication that affects the body and in the body. So that was the exact type of way how the mitzvahs work. The mitzvahs were in the time of the Avis were not something that could impact the physical. So it failed with the effect of the fulfillment of mitzvahs and the physicality of the world. That it should be in such a way that this is what you were commanded. The Yidden by Torah were commanded. Top of page Yud. How would the world be ready? How would the Jew be ready to be able to affect the physicality of the world? It shouldn't just be spiritual like by the Avis. There had to first be avodim hayinu lefarim b'Mitzrayim. We were slaves to Parim Mitzrayim. Avodim daik is specifically the idea of slave. For the Torah, let's explain the Torah being an over the lakim concerning the term that we say someone who is serving Hashem, to whom Lashain ibud oiris, in the word working hides. And working hides is always used in Chassidus as a term to show of something that's very difficult and hard type of work. The koyala yigil l'shans iber machmas kumris oil maskash soilom. The idea of avodim hayinu, the ibud oides, that is referring on the toil to change the materiality and the physicality of the world. And how does that happen? This is accomplished through the difficult work with mortar and bricks and all their work that they did in a back-breaking way. Or a breaking way. Through all this hard labor, the world became refined. The world became ready to receive the revelation of the Eidus Chukim and Mishpatim in such a way that it will affect the physicality of the world, be and will nullify the materialism of the world. Sometimes Chassidus defines Chumris and Gashmis as different stages. Physical itself is able to be transformed. You can use the physical of something for Kedusha. The Chumrius, that's more the coarseness of the world. The coarseness of it, that is not transformable. That is something that's been this battle, like you used the term over here. This effect in the world is similar. It's similar to the effect of engraving in the animal soul and the physical body. That occurs through great and powerful toil, like we mentioned before about letters that are engraved. Similar to the power of action that's invested in engraving, that the power and the toil that goes into the effort that goes into writing and speaking is incomparably easier than the effort that goes into engraving. So the same thing, avodim hayinu, and the idea of chukim, the hard work and toil, brings about that there should be able to be the influence of Eidus Chukim Mishpatim in this world. Then Shaydezi Yavil Yiras Havaya, she is Batlum B'tziusay, and this will come to have all of Havaya, that he will be, in a way that he's Es Havaya, that he will become nullified from the B'tzius. It's Zelch Messiah, because of that's where he concludes it in the Pasuk. Right? Saveinu Goim Nula Toivlanu Kol Hayom L'Chayim Kol Hayom. He commanded us, so it should be good for us all the days, to make us be alive like this very day. What does it mean, like this very day? What it says, like this day, it refers to the general idea of Geula. Geula is called day. The opposite of the idea of exile that we say is we do not see the signs of Hashem. It's called night, which indicates that things are concealed and covered. So when did this take place? The Geula of Inyan, Mitzrayim. This took place when we went out of Mitzrayim. Was in such a way that the night shone like day, meaning the very night itself was shining. I knew this means not just the benefit and the quality of light that comes instead of and out of a place of darkness, but a greater level that the darkness itself becomes transformed to light, because we have so impacted and changed the world and the physicality and the body, etc., and the nefesh habahamis, that the darkness itself can become light. Any questions before we go on? Let's continue in Ois Daled. Ois Daled can be very interesting, or like a little bit different, because Ois Daled, he's really going to focus on, this is a mimer that the Rebbe said, on Yud Aleph Nissen Tafshin Lamed Gim. This was the Rebbe's 70 72nd, 72nd birthday. Sorry, 71st birthday, excuse me. And therefore, that year the Rebbe was starting to say, and Chassidim also started to say, chapter Ayin Beis and Tehillim. So the Rebbe is now going to connect a lot of different psukim in this Perek and Tehillim of Perek Ayin Beis with what we were talking about, the revelation of the world and the transformation of the world and so on. Ois Dalet, line 25 on page Yud Aleph. It says, connect is what it says, he will rule from sea to sea, from the river. I think it's talking about the river cross till the ends of the earth. And his enemies will lick the dust, meaning they will fall to the ground. Sayim, when he concludes, his glory will fill the entire earth. The idea behind this is what is the idea of Shlomo Melech? It's like it says in Divrei Yomim that why was he called Shlomo? That Sholem v'sheket eten al Yisrael b'yamav, peace and tranquility I will place on the Yidden in the days of Shlomo Melech. What does that mean? I know the law uses they will not even need to go to war to ensure the peace. By David HaMelech, there was sometimes of peace, sometimes of war. And the war had obviously a goal not to be fighting a war the whole time, but the war was to eventually bring a state of peace. But in the times of Shlomo HaMelech, there wasn't even a level of a war to bring to peace. It was entirely peaceful. But the Rosh Hashanah, top of page Beis, like it's explained in the Mamor, entitled Bada V'Shalom to the Middle Rebbe, the perfection of the peace that we described that took place in Shlomo Melech's times, the goal. It will be in the days of Mashiach revealed. But the beginning of the peace that we will have in Mashiach's times, that we say the redemption is in peace. Shlomo began the times of Shlomo Melech. The Kaim Masir of Ashlam Musa, that the moon was full. The idea of the moon being full, since the Yidden are likened to the moon, that shows that we are in our full ascendancy, we are fully luminous and so on. Mamshech and the Perek Tehillim Ayin Beis continues. Elakim Mishpatech Melech tames the Kosel of Ben Melech, that Hashem, your mishpatim you give to the king, and your tzedakah, your righteousness, to the prince. But the Rebbe says both of these that Hashem is giving his mishpat and tzedakah is referring to Yid. The koi al kol echad ve'echad miYisrael. This is referring to both king and a prince, is referring to every single Yid. Shenikra b'shem melech u'ben melech. Every Yid is called a king and a prince. Mevor b'Zohar, like to explain in Zohar, the Malachim of Bnei Malachim Ikru, that Yidden are called kings and they're called princes. Because of the pasuk continues, Yod in Amcha b'tzedek v'aniach v'mishpat, he will judge your nation with righteousness and the poor ones with mishpat, with justice. I know. Yisrael heim hapoyolim b'shamru derech havayel lasit tzedakah mishpat. Yidden affect the observance and the guarding of the path of Hashem, that says that Hashem saw that Avraham Avinu was going to command his household after him to do tzedakah and mishpat. So the same thing over here, the Yod in Amcha b'tzedek v'aniyecha v'mishpat is talking about the tzedakah and mishpat that Yidden affect in this world. So it explains, what does this mean? Let's explain the Torah. Through a person making mishpat in himself, making an appropriate accounting and judging himself, and doing everything according to what is necessary. So then the mitzvahs are in a greater way. Why are the mitzvahs in a greater way if a person is making and judging himself appropriately, making appropriate cheshbon on that? So the Rebbe goes on to say, since by the Yid becomes because of his mishpat, he's in a way, and he attains a level of considering himself like Avraham Avinu said about himself, I am dust and ashes, so therefore, we are able to accomplish the mitzvahs in much a greater way because it is bit. Not only like Avraham, but even greater. The Seder is even more so, because of the advantage of the giving of the Torah in comparison to the avoid of the forefathers. He becomes a level of the Yira Esavai that becomes completely nullified, like we were talking about before. The Esavai shows on total bit. By days and through being a total bittul by himself, Nasas Gama Pula becomes the influence and the effect also on the world. In such a way that he rules from sea to sea and from the river till the ends of the earth, and his enemies will lick the dust from Messiah be Molech Vaidis. And he concludes, and his glory will fill the entire earth. Even in this physical earth, it will be filled with his glory. This refers to the glory that occurs. It says that in the previous pasuk to this, it says that he does wonders for himself. The fact that he's saying he's doing it for himself, it's not a level of Seder Ishtalshlus. It's referring to Hashem's very essence, like the teaching of the Baal Shem Tov, that he himself is the one that does these wonders that only he himself is aware of. This glory that comes about through doing the wonders for himself. This like hidden wonder, if you will, should actually become down into the earth. In such a way that his glory and honor will fill the entire earth. How do we reach all of this in this capital Tilim? All this comes by first prefacing the level of servants we were to our Pari Mitzrayim. This means has being within the constraints and boundaries of the physicality of this world. He's involved like a servant, top of page Gimel Meloshin, in the way of working hides, in a way of hard work, of engraving. Through this, the world becomes a ready vessel in such a manner that after going out of Mitzrayim, the giving of the Torah will be from above to below, and the neshamas begufim dafka, specifically the neshamas and bodies. Like Chazal say that Moshe Rabbeinu challenged the malachim that wanted to bring the Torah, leave the Torah in Shemayim. He said that you then descend to Mitzrayim. The purpose of the Torah is to be down here. Just like it took place then in Mitzrayim, that brought forth the giving of the Torah, the revelation of the Torah to the neshamas in the bodies, so doing the service of a Yid Hashem. The idea of the fearing Esavai, the total nullification once being will be not only concerning the neshama, also concerning the animal soul and the physical body. That their entire being will only be to fulfill the will of Hashem. There's a this effect that should be good for us to give us life. In such a way that it should be like this day, like it says, you are standing today. And Chazal say, just like this day shines forever, not like a candle, it's extinguished. Day is forever. So it becomes by every single Yid by his individual redemption. And in general, by all Yid. General redemption, meaning the whole Klal Yisrael goes out of Golos. It says, like your days going out of the land of Mitzrayim, I will show you wonders. Then it will be that the night will shine like day. God of Mamas speedily in the coming of Mashiach Tzidkenu, will come, he will redeem us and lead us upright to our land. Any questions?